our AWS Sydney meetup on modernisation and data management. So as always, we will be recording today's session and uploading to YouTube, and if anyone has any presentation ideas, we're setting up for next year, so please hit us up at the end. And quick show of hands, is anyone attending AWS reInvent in a few weeks? 1, 2. Awesome. So we will hopefully be doing a AWS reInvent recap. So if you're interested in joining a panel, sharing some experiences, do feel free. I know we've talked as well. But feel free. So today we've got Veeam here. So very thankful for having Veeam to come along to present. They will be presenting on the second talk, which is solving data management and protection in Kubernetes applications. That will be from Mark Swalwell, so very thankful to have him here today. And first up, sorry I went in reverse order tonight, but we have Hugo who will be presenting on how to failure modernisation. So, without further ado, I will hand it straight over to you, Hugo.
Thanks for joining me here tonight. Thanks for Polar 7 for the opportunity to talk. If you were here last month, you heard Guillaume talk about PIR. He was French, so I want to apologize in advance because you'll have to hear from a French-speaking guy with a French accent for the next 30 minutes. But I'm also Australian. I moved here 15 years ago. When I moved here, I didn't really speak English, but I spoke Java. That was good enough for my job. And over the years, I've been involved in various projects for various customers, and the biggest one has been building and scaling my own startup. I was co-founder and CTO there. I wrote the first line of code in 2011. Over the years, I tried to keep it up to date. Try to modernize it a little bit, move to containers, move to a few different things there. With, at the same time, building the business with all the constraints that come with being a startup CTO. Along the way, I made mistakes. But mistakes are good learning opportunities, right? So I learned a lot of mistakes, and I learned a lot. 2 years ago, I joined AWS as a solution architect, and that's to help customers avoid making the same mistakes that I made previously. But I've also been learning a lot in the past 2 years from new mistakes. So tonight, I want to help you learn. But instead of telling you what you should be doing, I want to help you make these mistakes. Because if you're like me, you will learn better by making the mistakes yourself, rather than someone telling you you should do that. So I will give you 10 ways to help you fail a modernization project. And I hope that by the end of the talk, you will have a few ideas you can try to learn a lot yourself. When I help customers today at AWS, I usually cover people, process, and technology. So I'll give you a few ways to fail, to make mistakes on each of these topics. But before we dive into it, let's just take a minute to define what is modernization. This is the Wikipedia definition of modernization. It talks about microservices, platforms, software. It's very focused on technology. But modernization is not just tech. It impacts people, it impacts processes, it impacts the company culture. It can also have different names. So if you work on a cloud migration project, if you work on a transformation project or replatforming, they are all different names for modernization. Especially if you work on a monolith microservice project, I want to know about it. Companies modernize for various reasons. It could be to scale the technology, to maintain response time as they get more traffic. It could be to avoid outages, to increase resiliency. It could be to make developers more productive, because they are stuck somewhere. It could be to increase the release of features, of product features. But in general, what's common is it's to lead or support business growth, to facilitate innovation for the business, so that the company can keep growing, can stay relevant in a rapidly evolving industry or market. Can I get a show of hands here? Who has been involved in some kind of modernization project? All right. Now think about one project. If it completed on time, on budget, and delivered the expected results, please raise your hand. Come on, I did at least one. I'm trying to be very data-driven, and so based on everyone's tonight, I can say that 90% of projects don't succeed. So you already seem to be experts at failing. So I hope you can still learn something tonight, because you know a lot already. Okay, let's start with the first one. The easiest one. How to fail, just start too late. If we think about technical debt, or the cost of technical debt over time, it may look something like this. So at the beginning, when you write some code, you deploy something new, it doesn't cost much. But over time, if you don't touch it, it starts costing more and more to maintain. And it's not linear, the cost accelerates over time. There seems to be a threshold where, after that threshold, the cost of changing and maintaining that service or that piece of code is much more expensive. So your goal, if you want to fail, is to reach that threshold. You want to make sure that you don't do anything before. Wait until it's too late, so there's no way back. And everything has to be rebuilt from scratch at great cost for the company. Good. If you were to continuously invest in modernization and do a little bit every week or every sprint or even every year, you would bring the cost of technical debt lower every time you do that. So you may never reach that threshold. So don't do this. Don't do continuous modernization. Don't do anything until it's really too late. And you're guaranteed you will learn a lot. Okay, people are important for any project. People are important. So if you want to fail, don't worry about people. Simple. We can use the same graphs as before for people and processes. If you don't invest in people, after a while, they will leave. It will cost you a lot. If you don't invest in processes, like if you're still using waterfall processes, you may even reach the threshold before you use anything. It's great. Just do it. So please, do not give any training to people. You don't want them to get new skills, because they may find a job where they can use these skills and use them. Make make sure that your company culture or values don't exist. Don't. Or maybe have really bad values, like do more with less. You want to get people in the company. So you want to pay them enough to get them in, make a lot of promises, but then break everything. Never talk about money again, just no. Especially, add more workload to them. Make them on call 24/7 with no compensation. You really want to make them not happy. But at the same time, you want to keep them as long as you can. So you want to make them feel important. You want to tell them they are really important for the company. The business couldn't live without them. To make them feel really guilty about leaving. So stay a little bit more. Number 3. If you're in a tech team today and you want to modernize something, don't involve anyone. Just, especially not your leadership team, just do it. Be your own boss. Don't ask anyone what they think. Don't feel like you need the business to be on board with this project. Just no. Never use the word business case. That doesn't work. If you're good at what you're doing, the business would not understand what you're doing anyways. That's if you're in the tech team. So if you're in a leadership team and some team is starting a project, fire the tech lead just before the kickoff. After they spend a few months planning the project, just when it starts kicking off, fire the tech lead. Bonus points, if you're the CEO or the board of the company, just fire the CTO. It's guaranteed how to fail. Last one for people side, and I must admit I'm personally guilty for this one. So get one person to do everything. Create a single point of failure. People. Let someone own all the knowledge. For example, if you take your DevOps process, make sure there's only one person who can review the code, approve the code, and release the code. Central platform team of one person. That way, if they leave, no one can release. All the knowledge is gone. So you will be in a good position to learn. Don't ask people to document what they're doing, because why? No point. When you have servers that are running and nobody knows what's running there, why it's running, what the applications are doing, you will achieve a nice learning. Okay. Just check. Am I on the right track? Did you recognize your company? So, just taking real life examples here. So, everything I'm talking about is I've seen it. Or I've done it. So let's go through a few more tips. Has anyone heard about Conway's law? No? Really? One. So, in our context, it basically says the structure of software will mirror the structure of the company that built it. So, for example, if you have small distributed teams, they are more likely to build something that looks like a microservice architecture. If you have one large team working in the same office, they are more likely to build a monolithic architecture. So, if you want to fail, you want to disrupt them, you want your architecture, software architecture, to be as far as possible as your team structure. If people have been working together in a big team for a long time, just keep them together. It's more efficient. Like they know each other, they're used to it. Don't disrupt that. Because if you were to structure your teams in small squads, small independent squads that own a specific business domain, for example, you may end up with nice, flexible microservice architecture. And when someone new joins a company, if you have small teams that own a domain end to end, they can learn about that domain. They can become efficient very quickly. So don't do it. Keep the cognitive load very high. You want a new starter in the company to spend at least 6 months trying to understand all the systems, all the applications before they can be productive. Next one. This is something I'm still hearing sometimes. DevOps is dead, Agile is dead, or it's just dead. Same thing. So I'm not going to try to define DevOps, but it's about culture and engineering practices. So if you want to fail, just don't do any automation. Don't do any unit tests. If you're still doing waterfall instead of agile, you haven't updated the processes, just keep doing it. It's really been working forever, right? So why change? Why would you need to invest in CI/CD and create pipelines that deploy applications automatically? If you have a developer or someone who can just zip files on their laptop and upload them. Well, the manual process is much simpler. Someone knows how to do it. You don't need to invest in CI/CD. This particular one, there is feature flags. Feature flags, I've seen that as a really, really powerful feature or solution to enable teams to become really confident in what they deploy. If you achieve continuous deployments, the team feel empowered, and so don't do that. Like, feature flag is really too powerful. It's really not going to help you fail. Also, don't invest in culture. If you're planning to do things like hackathons, don't, because people would try to innovate during hackathon, and it's not good for failure. Don't spend any time on BAU or technical debt because you want to release new features. So just do that 100% of the time. Focus on new features. Release new things. If an application is running fine, don't touch it. It's running fine. Just leave it there. Normally, after a few years, nobody will know what it's doing and be in a good place. This one I like a lot because I'm also guilty. If you think that you need microservices, please enforce it. But go all in. Just go as micro as possible. So a lot of small microservices. And don't think about coupling them together. Don't think about domain-driven design or these things. Don't think about event-driven architecture. It's not going to help you fail. So build a lot of small microservices that make direct synchronous API calls to each other. Because they all depend on each other. They all have synchronous API calls. That way, when one of them fails, they all fail. And it's really good. Everything fails together. So it's what I call a distributed monolith. So build a distributed monolith, not proper microservice. You should also give complete freedom to developers. If one of them wants to use a new programming language for a new microservice, let them do it. Any programming language. It doesn't matter if no one else knows it in the company. It doesn't matter if it's something no one knows in the world. Just let them do it. It's probably the most efficient thing to do. You don't need any standards. Right? People can learn. So if someone wants to use something new, other people will learn it. They will have to. A good one is if someone wants to use Kubernetes, say yes, please use Kubernetes. If they come back later and say, oh, I also want to use Kafka on my Kubernetes cluster, say yes, do, go for it. Double K, always a good opportunity to learn. If you're doing a monolith to microservice project, make your applications much more complex, much more harder to maintain than when they were imagine you've taken an old application, you modernized it. It runs in containers. You may be happy and think it will last forever, and you'll never have the problem you had before again. So it's good thinking if you want to fail. But modernization has no end state. It never stops, keeps going. Docker is only 9 years old, Lambda is only 8 years old, same as Kubernetes. There will be new services, new solutions released all the time. There's reinventing for it, so new services released again. If you can adapt your applications, your architecture to the next new thing, you will fall behind, and there's no way around it. So there could be major breakthroughs like quantum computing or things like nanosecond networking. We may even have Web 3.0 and metaverse taking off at some point. So if you want to miss out on all these big things, make sure that you keep your architecture very close, not flexible. When you build things, just think about the present. Never be curious about what's coming up next. I personally believe every line of code that you write today should be given a 5 years lifetime. So if you don't touch it for 5 years, you'll reach the threshold. Okay? Programming language will be end of life. Frameworks will be you won't get security updates, and nobody will know what it does. So if every line of code has a 5 years lifetime, the best way to fail is to write more code. Write a lot of code. Don't leverage any managed service. You want to write a custom implementation of everything. So you'll have to maintain and update it forever. The opposite of that one, let's think again about that application that you modernize, you move it to containers. It's a bit monolithic, but it runs. Let's say it's using the Spring framework and 50 libraries. You want to keep them fresh. You want to upgrade every time there's something updated. So if there's a new Java version, if there's a new Spring version, or if there's a new library dependency update, you want to upgrade the next day straight away. You want to focus on keeping everything nice and shiny up to date. You don't want to focus on the business features and new things you have to build for the business. Secondary. If you read on Reddit and two people say, this new framework is a revolution, it's the next big thing, start using it, refactor all your code, adopt it. Do it again 2 months later for the next one. Plan for everything. Spend a lot of time over-engineering everything. Make sure your architecture supports Web 3.0 and metaverse somehow, just in case someone needs it one day. Last one. Some people say security is job zero, and it needs to be embedded in the company and processes from day one. Don't listen to them. You can always edit later. You should give full access, full admin access to your developers for everything. You should have access to production metadata. You should be used to having access. And when it's deeply embedded in their ways of working, you will be able to take it back. Right? Don't use infrastructure as code because why? People can just click in the console and make changes. There's no tracking, there's no audit, it's nothing. It's much more efficient, it's faster. Why should you write code to do that? You don't need technical guardrails because developers are not bad, right? They would not release something insecure on purpose. Wouldn't happen. They know what they're doing. Trust the developers. Same way you can trust your employees. They would not, like non-tech employees would not click on random links in random emails. You don't need to educate them about phishing and malware. one day you have a data breach and you find the developer responsible for that line of code that created that breach, make sure you blame them publicly because it's 100% their fault. That's it. Let's stop here for today. I hope you learned a bit. Feel free to come have a chat later on. And I hope the next presenter is not French.
Thanks very much, Hugo. So I'll pass it over to Noah. I think I've got some great ideas to implement in our modernisation project, so I'll say a little bit.
Please put it on.
Actually, I think there's been a few people putting those skills into practice just recently, especially the number 10. Good to go. Awesome. Excellent. Hey, well, thanks everyone. Thanks for inviting us to this group. For those people who don't know, my name is Mark Swalwell and I look after Caston at Veeam for APJ. So, just a quick show of hands. Who's heard of Veeam? Fantastic. Who's heard of Caston? Oh, and the Veeam employees, great. Probably about 2 years ago, Veeam bought a company called Caston who focuses on Kubernetes data management, Kubernetes backup. So I'd like to put in a few terms. I'm going to get a sore neck in this I'm going to get a bit of an overview. I mean, 15, 16 years ago when Veeam came out, they came out because they saw the transition to virtual machines. And they saw that the way that people were trying to back up and protect that data wasn't working, wasn't efficient, and needed a virtualization native type solution. Well, fast forward to today where we have the custom product, which is showing that transition to microservices and containers and how we protect and back up. It's got to be different from how we've been doing it for other technologies as this goes forward. And really that's what we're focusing on. Awesome. And so, I mean, we see the growth of apps. I don't have to explain to the audience here what we're talking about with those apps. But what I see is a lot of, I'm a DevOps person. I spend 99% of my time on dev and less than 1% on the ops. And really understanding what that ops needs to do and how we protect our applications as these become more critical is really where we're at. And we see about half of our customers actually have a strategy or have a way of protecting those applications if something goes wrong. Whether it's a large nefarious activity, or maybe it's just some fat fingers, which I'm very guilty of in my history in this space as well. And so a little bit about Veeam, a great customer base. Obviously, a few of you have heard of us. I think Caston ourselves is growing about 900% year on year, just with the advent and uptake of Kubernetes containers. A great range of solutions, but a lot of great support and people in those regions that we need them, including a large support centre for Veeam in Sydney, actually, in Australia. Part of the CNCF, one of the platinum contributors and supporters of that solution, one of the only backup that would be in that platinum tier. And really what we want to focus on is those day two operations that we are seeing within Kubernetes platforms. Yes, backup, recovery. I think if you talk to any of our counterparts, these are the things that we do as part of the project. But the really key focus or the secret sauce that we have is this ability to move applications between distributions, between sites, and even help that migration from different versions of Kubernetes quite easily. I actually met with a customer the other week who said there's a 7th circle of hell just for the person who designed Kubernetes management and upgrades, because just the complexity of getting that done. We're able to take a whole application, including its state, its application, its data, its configuration, and move it to another Kubernetes platform quickly and easily. That could be from 22 to 24. That could be from Red Hat to Tanzu. That could be from GKE to AKS. So those solutions are very easy for us. And our Transform engine will actually help you convert that application to that distribution. So if you've seen an API disappear, if you've seen something be depreciated, we can actually help you and transform with that YAML file the changes that you need to be successful on that new version. So what do we do around custom? So the 4 main things is continuity, keeping your application alive. I would say that if you have an application where it's stateless or stateful and it's not available to be recovered in moments or minutes, we can help with that. The digital transformation is probably an overused term, but part of that application mobility is where I want to take these systems and either refactor them or have them move into different platforms at different times. So the ability to come and develop on OpenShift and run it on-prem, but have it running on Rosa on AWS, and how I move those data systems, and how I keep consistency across those, so I'm not running different versions within that platform as well. GDPR and those type of solutions don't disappear. We help customers with their data requirements and data safety. And then finally, having security built everywhere. And I do agree with day 0 being the security process, but something that the CISO is not going to be scared that it's running in their organisation. And that's something that we see a lot of holes in today. So the key focus for us is those backup recovery, disaster recovery, but doing that in a multi-cloud and hybrid world. So the way that I can move these things across, have that sort of polyglot persistence with databases that are inside my system, but also have checkpoints into RDS, so that if I have databases and paths that comes into my system, I can keep checkpoints and snapshots consistency when I take those copies. And then finally, what I think is missing in a lot of solutions that we see out there is RBAC. Making sure that the admin doesn't have unfettered access to the data. Make sure only the right person can move that data into production, only the right person can have access to that backup in the first place. I think some of the key things that we're seeing that are missing out of these solutions is threefold. The first one is we're trying to do VM level or hypervisor level type engagement with containers. And look, we can take a backup, but whether that restore is congruent, whether it's usable, is a totally different case. So we can show a customer or we can show an end user, when we take these snapshots and backup, you have an application-centric copy. The second thing is, I'll just do a script for that. This is sort of like the frog in the pot of boiling water. You don't realise it's too hot until it's too late. We spend so much time, even though it's an automation process we're doing, there's so much care and feeding into that ecosystem that we could really automate quite easily, that it becomes quite difficult. Kubernetes is obviously Kubernetes is changing all the time. We're seeing changes in Kubernetes platforms 3 to 4 times a year. So keeping those systems up to date with those changes is hard enough, let alone with your application changes. And then finally, when I'm going to recover by running a script and building another site and taking what I need. When I have those fat finger changes, or I lose security credentials, or I've made some small change in my CI that I want to roll back from, how do I do just an artifact? How do I just restore one key element rather than trying to build something, copy out something, and move it back into the system? We want to recover these things in moments or minutes, not hours or days. And so the Kasten approach is to really have a look at a whole ecosystem around the application. So I want to look at all its pods. I want to look at not only just the PV and the persistent volume and the PVC, but what's the secrets doing? How do I get my config maps? How do I understand these solutions and make that as a complete copy of that solution that I move forward? So what does it look like? How would I do this? So we've got our AWS infrastructure. We're running, say, EKS, or maybe we're running Rosa. on AWS, and we've got our applications, whether we've built them or we've moved onto that platform. Kasten actually installs or runs on the container platform itself. And the beauty about that is it now can identify all the systems that run within that container engine on that platform. It integrates into that solution. It automatically goes and finds the applications that are running there. It then connects to the CSI driver or the object storage that you want to back up to, so it understands where I can take snapshots and how I'm going to move my data around. And then finally, we've got some great technology where we leverage blueprints so that we can quiesce and connect and have application hooks directly into those applications and databases that are running on that platform itself. And we can actually take those application blueprints and put them in, as I said, into RDS. So we can take a snapshot or a point in time copy or a check mark of where that database system or where that system was when we took that back up and recovered to that point. So I don't like showing GUIs at these type of platforms, but the beauty about a GUI is what we've done here is give a representation, especially for multi-cluster management, geographical management, in a simple representation. But every command and every action that we do through this is actually an API call, and I'll show you that in a second. So what we've done here is we've connected up to a system. As you can see here, we've got 75 applications and 68 compliant. We do a policy as code approach. Set a policy, it gathers all those solutions that end up as that within that policy, and it's saying that 68 are compliant with my policy, it's being backed up, it's following the policy correctly. 2 are not compliant, so I've got a failure there, I need to go and investigate. And there's 5 that are unmanaged. There's 5 new systems, there's 5 new applications that appeared in this system that I don't have a policy to fit for. So something really easily to go and identify. What's great about this system is if I take this application, I'll take these microservices and I divide into 3, I don't then have to go to the ops team to say, you need to redo what it looks like for your data protection. It automatically picks that up. And we do that through as a policy, as I said. So we set policies for snapshots, import, for export into an object storage, S3, blob, S3 compliant, things like Wasabi and those type of repositories as well. And we set that policy based on location, tag, application, system that you'd like to do. But what's really great about this is I'll actually give you all that as your code. So once you've set that policy up and you understand what that policy is, go and cut and paste that policy into your pipeline, into your automation tool. We see a lot of customers, and I've got a great presentation about how we implement this into the CI/CD pipeline. So once something comes through the CI process and is approved for deployment, we take a snapshot, we take that backup, and then we continue with the CD process. And if something goes pear-shaped in that CD process, we can come straight back to where that snapshot is and try again. So fast fail, yes, but not throw it all away and start again fast fail. So it allows us to go through that process. Because we do that transformation, we'll actually show you the YAML file changes that you need when you go to say 122 to 125. When you go from Red Hat to Tanzu, we'll give you those updated YAML files and you can see what you need and we can push that out to a Git repository for you to compare against what you're running currently. So if an API is depreciated, some settings have changed, things are unavailable on a different platform, we pick that up straight away for you. And then obviously, data protection is no good unless you can actually verify that it actually has been done, it's recoverable. So we give you that in a simple to use Grafana dashboard, which you can use ours, or build this into your own offering as well. So the key thing around Kasten is this vendor agnostic, multi-disty approach, which allows us to manage all those different data services on your choice of distribution, on your choice of infrastructure, on-prem or cloud, with a range of different security services as well. The key thing for us is we're seeing so many customers that try microservices on a particular platform, and it was fit for purpose back then, it was fit for purpose 12 months ago, and then now I've seen the power of microservices and I want to do something different. That cost to change, that whole rebuild is a real preventative step forward. It allows them to actually do these tests and do these changes overnight in some of these cases. let me run through a couple of ideas here. So all I've done here is I've got, I want to move from Tanzu to OpenShift. I've got a progress system running over in my container in that particular namespace. I've installed K10 into the container engine over there, and that's allowed me to take a snapshot. So I'm taking a snapshot of the whole system, the config, the data, the setup, the credentials, everything that I need to recreate that. What I've done on the other side is I've just done a bare OpenShift container. I haven't done any configuration. I might have just used my infrastructure as code to roll that out as per my standards, but nothing particularly fancy. I've then moved that and copied that snapshot out to an object storage. I've created an import into the new system. So I've installed K10 into this new system, and it's imported that object storage. It then goes and restores that application, and then I have that application up and running in the second system. And a couple of key things that happened here is we've restored this, but we've seen that we've got Tanzu and we've done the restore application. It's actually gone through a transform and done things like I need to change maybe my storage class. I need to change how I do my security credentials. All that's done through the casted process and transformed through that casted process. So another example, same again, I want to go from AKS to EKS. How much fun is that? You can't even back up AKS to different regions with even their native tools. So how do you move that around just within AKS regions? So we install Caston, we take a snapshot, we move to object storage, we suck it in through an import process, restore the application. What about this as a DR system? So every 5 minutes, I'm taking a snapshot, moving to object storage and importing it, and until I actually have a failure, I've decided I want to fail over to a second site. Doesn't have to be the same distribution, doesn't have to be the same cloud. I press the button as part of my failover, and I restore that application, and it's now up and running with that point in time. How about a great one? I just want to upgrade my distribution. How much fun is that? I do the upgrade, all these things didn't work. I do the upgrade, all these things still don't work, and I go through that process. What happens if I could transform that for you? It's the same process. So it allows us to go through, and when we do this final restore application, it will do that process. Now, I might have taken a snapshot, done my 124 upgrade, it hasn't worked for whatever reason, I can go back to my snapshot. I've done my upgrade 124, I've released it to production, I'm happy with it. 2 days later, I find while the distribution upgrade's gone well, the application has an issue and I need to roll back. I can do the transform to exactly the same process and roll it back to 121. Because I can't use the snapshot anymore because time's moved on, I've got new transactions, I'd lose customers, I'd lose data, but I can transform it back to 121. Something even OpenShift have a problem with trying to get an on-prem OpenShift copy into Rosa. Same process again. So let me just run through a couple of different quick use cases and show you what we're talking about when we solve these problems for customers. I think the first one is a really generic use case for a lot of our customers we see. You know, they've started on the script path, they're trying to refactor into a Kubernetes platform. I'll just start writing scripts to do backup and recovery. It just becomes too hard. Kubernetes updates, it doesn't work, I'm back to those scripts. We help this customer with Caston automating their process for backup and recovery, making sure that they can see great data about it being successful, and there's 150 hours returned back to that organisation from people doing that ops stuff back into the dev stuff. What's that? That's 4 or 5 FTEs, Kubernetes administration I have to go and try and find. They're already in your organisation, which just freed them up. Silicon Valley Bank's a great one. You know, they were trying to use freeware tools like Bolero to try and get that work done. Single-threaded, scripted application. It just couldn't get the backups and recovery done in time. In this case, we're tightly integrated with Red Hat OpenShift, and we're able to get those backups and recoveries done. What they loved is, first of all, the CISO liked this solution because Valero doesn't give them any security or authentication or RBAC solutions. But they have a lot of problems where they need to get back a granular piece of data within the container. We solved that. We could restore just a single artifact as well as doing those transformations. I'll go through this one. multi-cluster, so if I've got geographical spread or I've got multiple systems to go and protect, I can set a policy globally and everyone can follow that policy in a multi-cluster environment. But it doesn't take autonomy away from those teams. In this case, software licensing, different applications, different tax rules, different requirements for applications over time. They can actually go and change and update what they needed to, but as a company certification, they can exceed at least all these applications are being protected as required. This is my favourite use case. So, Sophie Stereo is an IT services organisation out of Europe, and they had 750 applications sitting on Rosa with version 3, and they need to move to version 4. Now, if there's any OpenShift people there that know version 3 to version 4, you've probably got a few grey hairs just thinking about it. It's a very difficult process. It's basically a complete rebuild. It's an extremely manual process. I would say that some of this stuff's getting outside of human scale. I can't get enough people in front of keyboards to get this done, nor can I find those hands to get that done. What we're able to do is move petabytes of applications, 750, transform from version 3 to version 4 with 2 operators over a weekend. So the whole transformation process, how they're running their whole organisation. So not just, I'm going to transform or just move one application, their whole organisation, and I'm more than happy to share you the details that we can do here, was transformed and moved to version 4 over a weekend. Instead of the 6 months and multi-million-dollar project that they were facing to get this work done. It's just a huge way of automating and getting the automation happening within this process. So key things for us, this is an enterprise-grade solution to these problems. It allows you to understand what's happening within your organisation and doesn't fit the policy that your organisation is specified for these solutions, but in a way that you'd expect any data management, data protection solution to do that. Look, a few quick resources. We've actually just refreshed our learning site, so we announced at KubeCon Cube Campus, but if you go to learning.com, you'll go to Cube Campus. We actually give 5 nodes free. So if you've got a system that you want to use, protect, or migrate, 5 free nodes of Kasten, obviously community support in that solution. But it allows you to go and download and use that system for free. If you want to trial it for 30 days across your whole system, go and download Kasten. It'll give you a 30-day free trial, however big your particular system is. So just to recap, the key things for us is that backup, recovery, and application mobility, but doing that in a way that we see those enterprise features. Easy to install out of the box. A single Helm command to get these installed. Part of your CI/CD process, as well as that, with a full security layer underneath that. Being agnostic, as I said, just allows us to have a different view of what we need to do and allows you to go and select what's fit for purpose for you for that day. That is my 30 words or less presentation for today. We're doing Q&A?
Yes.
All right, what's your first question? Any questions? Too good to be true? Where's my next gig? Yes, mate.
Can I just ask with Kasten about the, can I just ask about the risk and liability aspect about moving the application operating or anything like that?
Yes.
So if anything goes wrong, you have the depths of the organization, you've got the logs, and then you can custom view. How does that work? Do you help them with the error messages? Do they do their own work and then sort of just pass on to you the custom specific messages? Do you just recommend restoring the backup first?
So there's a couple of bits to unpack there. So the question was for people up the back is, if we had some sort of failure rolling out, is it, how does Kasten integrate with the rest of the team? So there'd be a couple of things I would say. If I'm going to put this into my GitOps process in my CI pipeline, I'd probably have something where I've got my gold image coming through. I'm going to release it as a CI. as part of that pipeline, it would do a call directly to Kasten to say, take a snapshot. Okay, so take a snapshot, rolls out, and then there'll be a go, no go, approved, not approved for into production at the end of that steady pipeline. Depending what the answer is there, continue. If it's approved, we continue. Still have a snapshot if we need it. Maybe that's useful to move to UAT or some other testing. But if it's a no-go, that process will then kick off to roll the system back to that snapshot. So it will be basically rolled back to where it was at that snapshot, and you can start again.
Is the go no go decided by the custom team or the organization?
It'll be by the organisation, by the application approver. You know, your process around if that application is successful.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't have to be a technical query. It could be something like a business case one.
Yep.
So usually the data is in RDS. Can you give some cases that you put some complicated states that needs to be backed up in Kubernetes?
Yeah, so the question was about RDS and how we back up there. So using application blueprints allows us to, even though I might have a stateless container application, I'm using RDS, but it takes me 4 hours to rebuild stuff from my infrastructure's code. You know, I have issues about trying to get that back. So I might use Kasten to back that up, but it allows me to put a marker or a checkpoint in my RDS system to say, when I take a snapshot, this is where I was in that solution. So we've released some technology called Canister. It's an open source solution that allows us to interface in RDS. I can't remember the 2 services that we do out of the box, but it also allows you to do your own services on top of that. It allows us to interface into RDS systems to do that. Now, while we see a lot of RDS, we see a lot of RDS, a lot of systems are in RDS that they're starting to put into container systems. So when you've got that transition between a database that you've got inside as well as getting RDS, we can make sure that those 2 things stay synced through that process as well. And that's that application blueprint technology you've seen recently with AWS. Yes, mate.
How generic is the onboarding for the different companies?
Sorry, I can't hear, sorry.
How generic is the onboarding for the different companies? Since they also have like quite scattered services, I imagine.
How generic is the onboarding, like the install or?
Like the onboarding process, so can they really just use the service out of the box?
You could download Kasten today and start using it. It's also available in the marketplace if you want the full subscription. But it's a one Helm command install, and we actually now with 5.5 automate that install and also automate. We've got some basic policies built into that AI system to start with. So you've got policies and systems that will start protecting data straight away. That learning site, which is now Q Campus, there's some great labs for you to go through if you want to see how it installs and how it sets up, and something you can break or try and break, and then that'll bring that forward, bring that back when you restart. Any other questions?
What's the typical time frame you need to set this whole thing up for, let's say, on EKS?
15 minutes.
So from install to set up
Yep.
and putting the namespace authentication.
Yep. Yep. Well, maybe 30 minutes for me, but maybe 15 minutes for you. Any other questions, or do we have any questions in French? Sorry, mate.
Say you put a marker on your RDS databases, does Kasten then, I suppose when you've gone forward and you want to roll back, does it instruct the RDS database to actually restore itself?
Yeah, so through that application or through the blueprint, we can go, I want to restore back to this point in time, so roll your RDS back to that point in time.
Right, okay. So it gives that opportunity to make that decision.
Yeah, and it allows you to do it. It's not just in the container. You know, we have systems outside the container, just to have those 2 things synced. Yes, mate.
Got a question regarding the restore. You explained the policies that actually drive the backups. How can I limit who can actually restore and what that like?
Yes, you can. So we've got full RBAC support. So we take the RBAC that's within the Kubernetes platform that we're attached to, and so whatever security it is, and you can do that in a granular way as well. So you can say, look, the team can back it up, but only these 5 people can do restores, and they can only restore these 5 namespaces, not the finance or HR namespace. And only these 2 people can push it in production. So I can do a restore, but they can't push it into a production namespace without approval or role-based access. So yeah, it's a huge thing. That's half the FSI customers we talk to are coming to us because CISO won't allow them to do basically these type of things. Great. I don't know if there's any more questions, Amy? We're good?
If there are, feel free to catch
Mark.
Mark.
That's right.
At the end also we've got Hugo. If you have any questions, feel free to catch either of them. We have pizza and beer out back, so feel free to stick around, socialise, and again a huge thank you to Beam for coming along tonight and presenting. Probably mentioned we have merch down here at the front. Feel free to grab pens, shirts, and
I'll ask a few questions. Who asked those questions and wants a laptop stand or a little tiny speaker? You want a laptop stand or a speaker?
Laptop set.
Laptop stand? What about yourself? You want a speaker? T-shirt? There's t-shirts down there. Did you want a laptop stand or a speaker?
Take this.
You take the speaker? What about yourself?
I'll maybe give it to one of the gentlemen that was asking the question.
Hey, who asked up the back there? I'll save you one. You want a laptop speaker or a laptop stand? Speaker? Alright, speaker's here for you. And Arnie, I'll let you choose the final laptop stand.
Sure.
Pens and key rings, bottle opening key rings, which is going to be very helpful this afternoon.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Would love feedback and thank you for coming tonight.
Just quickly before everyone disperses.